pass mark for SQE1 is 300 out of 500, so 60% for FRK1 and the same for FRK2. There are 360 questions across both FRK1 and FRK2, so 180 each. The 500 points for each FRK are distributed over the 180 questions for each exam. So if the points were to be distributed evenly over the 180 questions, then each question would have about 2.8 points. In other words, there are 360 questions. 60% of the number of questions, the pass mark, would be 216 questions answered correctly, were they to have equal scoring. However, there's an important caveat. It's possible for each of the questions to receive a different score. In other words, depending on the difficulty of each question, the examiners assign different scores to it. On this basis, the magic number of 216 answered correctly could move up or down depending on the score given to the answers that you get right. So the marks overall are adjusted at the end to achieve the correct distribution to the difficulty scale. The SRA refers to this as the modified Angoff method, and it involves a panel of qualified solicitors considering for any one SRA exam question how many out of 10 solicitors at day one of their practice would answer this question correctly. And based on their opinion, the scoring for that SQE question may be adjusted accordingly. In other words, you could get less than the equivalent of 1 mark for an easy question and more than 1 mark for a difficult question. Scales are applied for each of the various difficulties, resulting in a scaled score. So before January 2024, the pass mark itself was not fixed, but rather varied for each exam, depending on the difficulty of the exam questions. And this system was so complicated that even the SRA's SQE assessment provider, Kaplan, was confused by it, in that they issued incorrect SQE1 exam results for the January 2024 sitting, with the wrong results sent to candidates on the 14th of March 24, and the results had to be reissued mid-April 24. 175 candidates have been wrongly told that they'd failed at least one part of the SQE1 when in fact they'd passed. Now, since then, the system has been simplified in one respect, insofar as there has since been a fixed pass mark for SQE1 of 300, continuing to date. So the pass mark for the January 2025 SQE1 exams will be 300 out of 500 in the respects that I've explained. So in other words, 60%, subject to the caveat that the individual questions may be given different score ratings depending on their difficulty and adjusted overall.